Minister, why bother with gas when you've got those 6 horsemen of the apocalypse riding towards you?
Thank you. First, let me take the opportunity to thank the Jeune Afrique Group for inviting us and also making this panel, because I think this is an important issue for us. If you look at gas, one could say, well, there's a lot of resources toward the world, and actually it's increasing. Yet it's very difficult to find, especially in sub-Saharan Africa or in small countries in sub-Saharan Africa, a market to use this product. If I use my personal example, we are struggling. We're struggling to match the cost of electricity in not only in urban area but also in rural area, where people have a lower capacity, I think, to pay for electricity, with the price that is being offered to us with LNG, for example, compared to perhaps what is today, for some options, solar energy. So when I see all this, when you look at what has been on the board here, you feel, why is it that we're just not lining up? We're not lining up because gas is very different from other products. Gas is one of the commodity, if it's been called a commodity, that requires long-term contract. So when you are with the government, what you're asking me basically, when I deal with you, is to commit for 20, 25 years, sometimes 30 years. Well, if you find oil, you don't need a contract, okay? There's a mismatch of currency when it comes to gas. I'm going to buy in hard currency, yet my revenues are collected in local currency. That makes the deal of natural gas to power not a very interesting deal for a lot of companies that do not find financing or come with such requirements. For me, who have been also, in the financial world before, sometimes you hear, it's even embarrassing what they're asking you to do, because you're asking yourself, do they realize this is gas to power to the poor? And what you're being asked is obviously it's a bigger mismatch than the currency. So you have a lot of barriers that today the private sector would have to work on in order to make sure that there's a bigger market. There is huge potential, but I think unless we're able to match this product with what it can do in terms of power or fertilizer for some that have the capacity and that have the market. Cote d'Ivoire and most of countries around us don't have these big markets that is required in order to have some of these other potential uses of gas.
Thank you. I might jump back to the governor that, as the minister was saying, it's not an easy win. Whereas you're, wanting to use gas to, as a catalyst for economic development in your state, easier said than done.
Thank you very much. Let me use this opportunity to appreciate Jeune Afrique and for inviting us to this program. Yes, my state, by the way, Bayelsa has over 40% of the entire gas reserves and deposits in my country, Nigeria. We have also about 30% of the oil deposits in Nigeria. And for a number of people who have followed developments in this industry in Nigeria, they also know that the story of oil and gas in Nigeria started from my state. So we know it not true when it comes to these matters. Right now, for the past 50-something years, we've been producing oil and we've been flaring gas. Now, what we as a government have decided to do, working with our partners, is to see how we can harness gas resources that we have to be able to create affordable power, and then also to attract manufacturing. And that's the case we're here to make.
But before that, you need to attract the oil companies in order to get the gas.
Oh yeah, and we have started a collaboration with this Nigerian subsidiary, Ajib. Over 50% of their operations actually is domiciled in my state. And what we are working on now is to agree on the mechanism by which we use our abundant and rich gas resources to see how we can provide power for the poor communities that need power for even basic things. Also, most importantly, which is why we are here with my team, we have set up the industrial base, the industrial park, the eco-industrial park, because we have power and they also have oil and gas facilities. Shell also has the same within that area. So unlike others, we don't need to go far looking for gas. We already have gas there in the industrial park. And working with our partners before the end of this year, first quarter of next year, we want to be in a position to produce, using our gas resources, want to be in a position to produce about 30 to 35 megawatts of power, so that we can be able to supply power to manufacturers. That's the only way we can generate jobs, create skills, then support the poor.
Might move on to Gilly, you have that microphone. I mean, reflecting on what we've just heard, as an operator, how do you see the current climate in terms of wanting to come into countries, whether it's Côte d'Ivoire, whether it's Bayelsa state here? Is it no-brainer, or actually is it really rather challenging for you?
First of all, let me thank the organization and all the staff for this great opportunity and the setup organized so far. It's a no-brainer, if I may say. Africa has 600 million of people without energy, without access to energy so far. So gas could be a great enabler for those people to access energy and unlock other opportunities in manufacturing, and also could be an opportunity to support a cheaper and more affordable gas. The use of the gas associated with the oil, which we are currently using in Nigeria, or in other country where we basically, like in Angola, where the gas produced is exported and at the same time is supplied to the market. So with the export of the gas, we can support also the gas given to the domestic market and circumvent somehow the biggest issue, the big issue we had in the ministry highlighted of the mismatch between the hard currency and the local currency for which you are paid. So
and the 30-year demand, that's not a problem?
It's not a problem for oil company, for major oil company. We always take a long-term view. When we get into a country, we wanna enter there, we wanna stay there for longer and create value, and not just create value in terms of taxes that we pay or local content which we develop, but also to essentially provide energy to the country and make growth in the country.
Maybe talk about the whole demand and the $200 billion opportunity. You're using the word could quite a bit. But thinking, if you would mind passing the microphone please to Mr. Zhu, from the Chinese perspective, from where you sit, how do you view these opportunities in Africa, whether it's in Nigeria, Côte d'Ivoire? Do you see this as an opportunity that's too good to miss, the no-brainer, as Guido said?
China's demand for the natural gas is growing very rapidly. Just last winter, we experienced a severe shortage of natural gas supply because of the ban from the government to use coal for heating. The forecast total demand in China in this year is going to reach 235, if my number is right, BCM. And we will expect a 15 to 16% increase for next year. But right now, the major supply for China market is from Australia. We do not see too many Chinese dominant players who are investing in Africa for natural gas. But we do see several big players like CNPC, the largest oil company in China. They acquired 20% of stake in Mozambique for the block 4 from Annie. And also we have some private sector players. They are active investors in natural gas in West African countries and also in Ethiopia, etc. I think in the future, Africa has a potential to become a major supplier of LNG to the world market, even though Africa is facing a very big challenge, very big competition from the United States and North America, Canada as well, because of the large, the huge amount of reserve has been discovered, and several of these projects has reached to the stage of final investment decision. So we will see this project finally happen in the near future.
And from your perspective, so you've been slightly outside, do you prefer the big projects or the small projects, or can they both work? How do you see that perspective?
We prefer right size. The right size for equity fund, like CAD fund, because we have $10 billion US, but we need to diversify our portfolio. So we for the huge projects, which is beyond our capacity. But for the middle size, it's okay for us for equity fund with a total capital.
So it's not economies of scale. It's not all about economies of scale.
It's about economy of scale. It's not necessarily that the larger block natural gas has economic scale. For the middle size, if other conditions are okay, you could find the economies of scale for the middle size project as well.
I mean, moving now to others there. Economies of scale, we're talking sort of the difference in size between the two of you, between what's in Bayelsa State and what you're looking at in Ethiopia is, chalk and cheese. So, I mean, how can you convince someone like Guido to come knocking on your door at all, or you want to develop yourself, when he's got, 20 times the amount sitting over here with Governor Dickson? Come over my side of the room.
Sure. First of all, again, I want to thank, like the rest of my colleagues, the organizers, for inviting us on this panel. Ethiopia is slightly different because a lot of people don't know, we are the second largest country by population after Nigeria. We're about 110 million people. And contrary to everybody else, we don't need gas for electricity. We actually sell electricity to Djibouti, we sell electricity to Sudan, and we're going to sell electricity to Kenya. And our electricity costs, believe it or not, are about 3 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's the lowest in the world.
Why are you bothering?
So I think that gas, for two things, as my colleague at the end said, number one, China is going to need a lot of gas. And I think in terms of the environmental issues that China has to deal with, they're going to take all the gas they can get. And the second is, was touched upon a little earlier, is food. We talk about fourth industrial revolution, and we talk about technology. You cannot eat big data. Yeah? You need food, and I think that gas can have a massive role. NPK, for example, high-value fertilizers, and I think that you're going to see more of that. Certainly in Ethiopia, and NPK is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium for those who are not in chemistry. And I think that in Ethiopia, you're going to see both LNG going to China, and then you're going to see also a lot of fertilizer use and feeding Ethiopia.
Maybe, Minister, I'd like to pick up on that, please, that point. How do you see, if you've got the gas, you can get it, what are the priorities for its use? Domestic demand, for power, for other industries, for export to Mr. Zhao here, who's waiting to take it. What are the priorities, and what do you think for African countries the priorities should be with their gas?
This is where size matters. If you have big size resources, you've got much more exporting the gas, LNG, or if you do have the market, you have applications toward the fertilizer industry, or the petrochemical industry, where you can produce your PT and all this, towards your export market, or if you have a big market, your own consumption market. And this is where there's a difference for investors, because the credit risk is different. Because your credit risk is about the ability of the market to take on. If it's smaller size, then you're basically going to talk to gas to power. Then the credit risk that an investor would take is no more the risk of the material itself, by the country risk, the credit risk of the country, which will be at the end of the day the off-taker. And that requires a very different structure, a different bank appetite to structure the deal. So size do matter. If you have big size, you have much more tendencies to have an export, and therefore export revenues with access to foreign currency, which most of the investors prefer. If it's local, they will look at the risk that they will take upon investing and selling long-term to a national power company. And this is where structuring the deal becomes more difficult, because in our region, most of the power companies are not in good financial shape.
I'd like to move on to that. That's brilliant, thank you. Structuring the deal, getting the finances sorted out. Your chairman was saying earlier, it's a major challenge. Maybe we could go back to Guido. How do you see you're structuring your deals? You're active in 12 countries in Sub-Saharan Africa. Structuring the deal, I assume it's different halls for different cause. Are there creative instruments you're starting to use now to try and get the deals over the line, etc.?
Yeah, well, talking about creativity in finance is not a great matter. I mean, because of the experience we had in the past with some, I would say, higher degree of creativity. But indeed,
that's you.
It's a combination of things. Of course, generally in gas, given the large amount of money required for the infrastructure, we just strike deals which are part equity, part with project financing. And in the last period, we've also had involvement of some financial institutions like World Bank. In the past, we were, as a oil company, more inclined to have a full equity investment with our own money. Things has changed now, so we are using more this different arrangement, and we have found financial institution pretty eager to entertain such kind of deal with us.
So it's not a problem getting money?
Well, it is a problem. It depends from the robustness of the project, the country risk. So there is no one answer on that. But if you have a strong rationale behind your project, if there are attractive returns, if it's a solid project, if it's a medium to large size base of resources, so you can get easily your money.
Maybe I'll flip back to the governor then. What are you offering people like or anyone who wants to invest in your industry? Are you having to be more creative because they could go elsewhere? What's from your perspective as someone who's got the gas, can you offer people?
Thank you very much. That's the main reason I'm here. Thank you for asking. As I've said a short while ago, my state is gas, oil. You can't complete the story of Nigerian oil without talking about Bayelsa. What we have done, therefore, learning from the mistakes of the past, where our gas has been flared over the decades, he knows that it's one of those flaring gas in my state.
Which we are not anymore. Just for we have a zero flaring since many years.
Working with our partners, what we do is to convert our valuable, abundant gas, natural resources to see how we can use it as a catalyst for starting manufacturing, creating jobs. And we've taken very practical steps. As I speak, we've established the Bayelsa Eco-Industrial Park, which is over 400 hectares of land already acquired. So any investor doesn't need to come and go through the hassles of looking for land to start any manufacturing. No, we have already done that for you.
But how does that help you get financing? or secure financing for projects, for gas projects?
Well, you know, as a government, we don't go into running businesses. Our job, as you know very well, is creating the environment. And in this case, we have the land available, planned estate available, and we've worked with our partners to make gas acquisition easy. There's already gas. We have already started constructing the first set of gas to power plants. So in the next couple of months, before the end of this year, and first quarter of next year, you're going to have about 25 to 35 gigawatts of gas already made available in the eco-industrial park. So we're looking for manufacturers, people who want to come to, manufacture, do whatever you want to do with gas.
And what's the cost of power that you've been able to generate? I know this is the power session, but how much are people able to pay for power?
Well, my team is here. Those are details that they deal with. A very competent team that is available here to interact. Yes, to interact with others. But the point is, we have created an enabling environment. Bayelsa, by every rating, is one of the safest, even in the Delta region of my country. So you don't have worries about stability, security. You don't have any worries about availability of land. The eco-industrial park is there, and it's a regulated place. The planning is there, made available. The team is here to interact with you. So if you're thinking of any investment in gas in Nigeria, the place to be is Bayelsa. But we have it in abundance, and we have a government that has also acted proactively by thinking through some of these issues, by solving most of the initial problems. So you can come, relate with them, and then go and start your manufacturing firms and create wealth. That's the only way we can
it's gas nirvana. So to others, then, if one thinks sort of the opposite to you, you're very much at the exploration level, you're sort of not producing yet. How can you compete with something like what the governor's offering people? How do you convince people that this is the place to invest and to back your projects? And so that could be an indicative for other smaller projects.
Well, we're geographically closer to China.
Yes, Minister Badlack.
No, I think that there's an opportunity for best practices. We have, in Ethiopia, we have 350,000 square kilometers of acreage in the region where ourselves and the Chinese are. So to give you an idea, that's the size of the North Sea. Okay, so the North Sea has had maybe over 25,000 wells, I don't know. In Ethiopia, we've had 50. And only 12 exploration and 10 have made discoveries. So totally underexplored for various reasons. Ethiopia is in a very interesting geographic neighborhood. The Horn of Africa is very, it's interesting to put it lightly.
But we believe the country has much more reserves for further development. That's why we believe we can develop industries which heavily consume natural gas. If you relate your development plan with the natural resources of the country, then you can fund. If you take a systematic view to develop projects, then you can plan, you can structure all the different projects together. You can figure out a right way to speed up the process of industrialization of a country. That's why I strongly recommend for a small country who has small reserves, well planned the use of the resources.
Is that how you see it, Minister, as well then? Thinking, so you've got a well planning, a package in a way, both the governor, shall talk about the examples they've been giving is very much, you've got to present a package in the way that your development can't just be in isolation. How are you doing it here?
Yeah, I think the way you attract investors is you have to show that you have a strategy in the sectors and there's a long-term vision, there's a long-term interest, and there's a long-term way for them to make money. I think at the end of the day, they're not coming here just to put a sweet deal with us. What they want is a reasonable return. You need to have, therefore, to show them that the enabling environment that you're putting in place is going to give them the opportunity, I think, with stability, as you mentioned. They want to make sure that they will have the rule of law, so basically the business environment is optimal, and that they will have access to foreign exchange currency because they want to be able to get their money back. If you're starting to bring this, then you're starting to attract them. But the question then is, how do you make this whole business, especially when you have small reserves, a cost-effective environment? And hopefully technology will evolve, research will evolve. We've seen a dramatic reduction in cost of explorations in oil following the sharp decrease in prices, which shows that the industry has the capacity to make changes rapidly. This is what we need in the gas sector. There's huge potential, I agree, but it cannot be developed at the current price today at the optimum. Again, I want to come back to some one comment. You say, how do you maximize profit? I think you have to optimize profit. Maximizing is not to the best interest of both parties. You cannot have a long-term relationship and a long-term contract unless it's balanced to both parties.
Does that mean, do you see, picking up on that last point from the Minister, is you find that very much in what Shekhar was talking about earlier, sustainable development, optimization rather than maximization? I'm not taking this as the punch bag here. No. Do you see then, I'd like to come on to maybe discuss with the Governor afterwards, is the changing nature of the relationships between the oil companies and the governments and those places. Are you seeing a change in the way these relationships are developing and moving forwards?
Yeah, first of all, I made a point at the beginning, when we are in a country, when we invest in a country, we want to generate value for all the stakeholders, not just through taxes or through the local content that we develop, but also enabling the country to grow. And one means for growing is to provide reliable, sustainable, and cheaper energy to the country to unlock other opportunity. I used to say that if you look at a hypothetical triangle now, to have a successful business case, you need three elements. You need the nature to bring the potential, geological potential, and Bayelsa as a great is well placed in that respect. You need also a government which brings a clear legal framework. We as investors, we like clarity. We also like stability. We want to make sure that when we agree something, it lasts for 20 years. We do not like bureaucracy. We do not like red tape. So efficiency is the best way to make it effective and cheaper. And the investor has to bring capabilities, has to bring competence, technology, and capital. So when these three elements are combined, you are in the perfect sweet spot. Yeah.
And is that easy to get, that sweet spot?
It is. Of course, it's not easy. Sometimes you may have competing objectives. But I think that times have passed, and now I could see. I mean, in my experience traveling many countries, that there is an awareness on that, and the leadership of each country is mindful that unless you create an enabling environment, investment will not come. And in today's world, where the competition is very high, everyone is looking to attract more and more investment by trying to lower the barrier and create a conducive environment for investment.
Well, I'd like to pick up on that point, please, Governor, with you. I was talking about he wants an enabling environment, but also he wants sustainable development and this sweet spot. So do you see the relationship between yourselves and the oil companies and the communities changing at the moment? Is it a more inclusive, dynamic relationship where everyone is benefiting, or is there still a lot of work to be done on this?
Well, clearly there is a lot of work still to be done. Historically, the relationships between governments of oil-producing countries and subnational entities like Bayelsa and multinational firms has been historically a very tricky one. But over the years, we've all learned our lessons. look at it this way, the IOCs, like every other private sector player, they are traveling on a straight road that leads to profit. Profit and profit, which is legitimate. We should encourage that. Now, the government, on the other hand, is traveling on a straight road that leads to service delivery, the public regulation, and all of that. But from our experience, these two straight roads, as it were, must have a necessary intersection, must be a point of convergence.
And a
convergence that leads, yes, that leads to jobs, prosperity, tax responsibility so that government can fund education, healthcare, and all of that. That's where we are in Bayelsa. But in addition to that, the government has to provide a regulation and take the initiative in this case without running any business, because governments can't run any business. That's why what we have done in my state is to conceive of the eco-industrial park, taking advantage of our abundant gas resources and reserves that will be there for a long, long time. And then we invite the private sector, because the private sector are necessary in creating jobs, creating wealth, in participating in what we've all been referring to as the fourth industrial revolution. Governments can't do that alone. But we have laid out the framework of the eco-industrial park, using our abundant gas resources and working with the private sector, working with the oil majors that already have licenses that own access to gas, and we are doing very well. Ajibako, Shell, and all of others. That's why we're in a position to say, look, we have access to gas in a way and in a manner that no other state in Nigeria has. And we have put it in a concise framework, provided the eco-industrial park, and now we are calling on the private investing public. Come, create jobs.
Be part of our sweet spot.
The sweet spot. Yes, that's it.
I mean, also, one of the things you talked about, Minister Muken, sort of being a sort of government as well, regulation, effective regulation. I think, to others you earlier were saying you need effective, clear, you talk about clarity as well in the regulation. Do you feel that from your perspective in government that the nature of regulation for gas is having to change as the circumstances of the industry and the dynamics of the industry are changing?
Well, in order for you to be moving along with business, you have to show some level of flexibility. But remember, flexibility, you have to look at it both ways. In one sense, you say you want visibility, your ability, and so visibility sometimes and flexibility do not get along very well. The fundamental question is you need to be able to adjust in order, I think, to continue to attract investors, because at the end of the day, what is going to make the difference is your ability, I think, to attract investors that are going to do more explorations and are going to find more reserves. I think the more reserve we'll find, the more price will go down, the more R&D is going to be developed. What is today, to a certain extent, what reduces the big potential of gas as opposed to oil is the end user application that you can have with gas. We have so much with oil today, not as much as gas. More and more people are going to start, and industries are going to start to adjust and develop more applications that are going to be using gas. At this point, you're going to see the volume of the transaction and the R&D, the research and the exploration into gas at a much higher level. Today, I've seen companies, oil companies, they're looking at you and they find gas. If there's no oil, they tend to say, I'd rather leave this and go because I don't want to take this credit risk. I'm going back to it because I've had this. So, and then they will say, well, if there's oil, there's kind of a sweetener to it. Okay? So, to me, the more, yes, we need flexibility. And I think we need to be able to bring flexibility in our system as long as also it keeps the status quo to a certain level for investors to continue to attract. If you have too much flexibility, then I would be told, well, there's no visibility. So it's a choice. I think it's a balance.
So how do you see the evolution and changing nature of regulation? Is there too much flexibility, not enough visibility? How these sort of terms?
I think for us, there's best practice, and we learned from our Nigerian brothers. We want to basically set up a gas development master plan. You got to be very careful about making sure that the fiscal incentives and so on and so forth are set. And one thing we haven't really talked about here is we talk about government and business, but we haven't talked about civil society and NGOs. And I think they have to be part of the conversation moving forward, because the NGOs and civil society play a big role in how the industry really develops. So having a great plan which includes all this in the sweet spot, I would add the civil society as another component.
And how are you engaging in civil society then?
Well, I think that certainly the communities that you work with, that's very important, because if the communities are not supporting you, again, we've seen from other, learning from other companies and countries who have done this, we've been very careful about making sure we're engaging them in the process from the beginning. Because there's perception sometimes when development starts, the community thinks that they're going to be getting a bucket full of money from the sky, and it doesn't work like that. So I think that making sure that you explain what the industry is and bringing the community and civil societies along with you is very critical.
I'm going to open the discussion to the audience very soon, but one last question that I want to ask before, so think of your questions, please. Renewables, how much threat is the gas industry under from renewables? Or is the market big enough? Is there enough demand? I think come on to China as well. Is the market big enough to have gas and renewables? Are they needed almost together to work hand in hand? How do you see it?
Well, we would see them as complementary at the moment. And one element which perhaps we didn't touch upon too much today was the role of the gas in the decarbonization process. So the gas is the bridge between the current. Today we are mainly driven by coal, oil. The future is renewable. Gas is the bridge between these two, and this is the way we see essentially the relationship between the gas and the renewable. Just to give you an example, today we are in our long journey to reduce the CO2 emissions, and this is part also of the way we care the civil society. So we are basically not producing any more electricity in our facilities, in our plants with gas, but we are producing those with renewable energy, with renewable means. In this way, we are freeing up gas and reducing our CO2 footprint. So we think there is space for both to answer your question, and we see very much the gas complementing and being the bridge towards a future of renewable energy.
So do you agree there? The whole bridge is gas a bridge for renewables, and then coal is no longer an item in China, as you say?
My view is whether it's a complementary or it's a rivalry. It depends on the cost of battery. Simple answer.
Cost of battery. Cobalt, coltan, go next door, please. No. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, questions from the audience.
I'm on both sides of the fence, but there was something the Honourable Minister kept mentioning, and I don't think I got an answer for that. I'm the largest producer of power generation in Nigeria. I have a plant that can produce 1,380 megawatts. We currently produce 600 megawatts, so we have 600 megawatts sitting idle. And essentially, why that's happening is because we cannot get the gas to come in to that power. For the very reason he talked about, there's a mismatch between the production of gas and the selling of electricity at local currency.
So your question, please?
So that's right. No, I need to bring that in view. Now the question which he raised is there any way that the producing companies like ENI and the government can ensure that gas that is coming to power plants like ours can come at local currency and not at foreign currency. Because as long as that's going to happen, we have 600 megawatts there, and another 240 megawatts just upstream of us that has no gas and it's not producing electricity, which is very much needed today in Nigeria. 800 megawatts sitting down because we don't have gas. How do we address that?
Minister?
If I had the solution, I would have the second game. Look, I think it has a lot has to do with confidence and long-term confidence in the market. You're going to see this more and more when more and more African countries do have a much better macroeconomic management and environment. And you've seen over the past 10 years a huge improvement in the way our economy are managed overall, even if there's been some ups and downs, but overall much better. I'll take as an example, what Côte d'Ivoire has just done. Côte d'Ivoire has just issued, it's the first actually sub-Saharan African countries having issued a 30-year euro bond in Europe.
Can you do?
No, not that amount. In euro, 850 million. This is the largest. I know we have something first. I have to put this in the smile. I have to do that. No, but I think it just shows the confidence, investors starts to in the way we're managing our economy. Having, a macroeconomic environment well managed, which means, with little devaluations, low inflation, would put more confidence into the markets and investors, I think, to go into this large investment. A country like Côte d'Ivoire has only started this. I think I'm very confident that in the years to come, this will come. And, we were debating, to be frank, on this last issue whether or not we put a local tranche in order to start to bring, because what we want now is to bring international investors in the CFA zone in order to get this the yield curve coming up over time. So I think more and more you're going to see this. By the time you do this, then I think it's no more an issue. I think now what people will look at is really the structure of the deal, the off-takers, the market, its growth. So what you will look in any project finance deal, that does not require this. That I strongly believe that we're not there yet. So you would have to deal with it for some years. But it's also our responsibility, first as politicians, but also as private sectors, to manage things well. Either the economy or private companies, and to give confidence to the rest of the world that this is the place, Africa, where business should be run and is run properly, professionally, with outstanding people, which, by the way, by 2050 has been mentioned this morning, would be the youngest continent on this planet. So this is the place to be. If you're not here today, then you're losing the big picture.
So, Governor, do you want to add something to answer your brother Nigeria?
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I know that Toye Cole is one of our leading entrepreneurs back home, doing a great job. But the issue you raised is one that we are all familiar with. A lot of trapped gas potentials that cannot be unleashed. Well, those are mainly regulatory issues. I know that there's some work being done by the National Assembly of our country in terms of reviewing the legal framework. I hope that comes through as quickly as possible so that people like him will be in a position to unleash the enormous gas potentials. But that's the very reason my state is having this other plan where we're talking of captive power, where we're talking of small power stations in areas where manufacturing can actually take place without going through the hurdles that the big players are having. So ours doesn't have the same challenges that he does. We sympathize with what the big players like Sahara or others are going through. And that's the case for Bayelsa, really. Because we're not talking of the 800 megawatts, 1,000 megawatts. No, we're talking of small power plants located in areas where there is access to gas resources, where we're working with the IOCs that have control of those gas resources, where manufacturing can take place, where jobs can be created, skills can be developed. That's the case we're here to make. So, but these are essential issues that national governments and those that have legislative complex over those issues. We'll deal with. I'm sure that the ongoing review of the laws will take care of that. By our system back home, the sub-national government, like mine, has no control over the sort of issues he's raising. So we sympathize with him. But that's why businessmen should come to Bayelsa.
Maybe moving on to the gentleman at the back there, please.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. Good evening. My name is Denzel Canterbury. I'm the chairman of the Bayelsa Eco-Industrial City Limited. And my question is to the China African Development Fund. In Bayelsa, as the governor has said, we have natural resources in terms of the gas. We have the clarity, stability, efficiency, cooperation of the local communities. What will it take to go to the third part of the triangle, which is to get funds from you?
The answer is...
And you're not allowed out of the room until you do.
I think the answer is simple: makes the project bankable.
Make it bankable.
Yeah, make it bankable.
And what does that mean?
It means we actually have two investment criteria. One is impact. Impact means we choose project which has significant importance to the social and economic development in certain country. The second criteria is viability. I mean commercial and financial viability. It's a common word which I think everybody can understand. Thank you.
So I'm going to put my former boss on the spot. That's Minister Thierry Tanon. Minister, how have your views changed from being one of the senior leaders in the topmost project finance house that may have been asking for a swap agreement, as Tonya Cole raised, to being a leader within government and having to look at it through a different lens? Is optimization the way you've come out? It would be good to hear your views on how things have changed.
I thought I'd be nice to you when you
Clearly not nice enough.
I will remember that. How it changed, I was thinking about that because just before this panel, and when you talk about public society, I was meeting with the consumer associations because there was a rumor that I might have a tariff increase in electricity, and all of a sudden it went through the social media and everything. How it has changed, I think I think the impact that your decision have when you're in government towards the nation is very different from the one you have when you're in the other side of the table. And you look at things very, very differently. So today, when somebody tells me, well, I want this IRR in my project, which when I was at IFC, I know. If you don't bring something which is at least 15, 20% IRR, it's like, thank you very much, next. And because you need to deploy your capital and everything. But here, my first instinct is to say, in order to get that price for gas, what does it translate into your IRR? Because that's what I'm leading to. And the negotiation between us, and this is why sometimes I express frustration. Frustration because some people come and says, we're just going to sell you gas. And then you say, well, at that price, I need to increase my tariffs by 5%. And for some people, it's just a deal. But when you hear it's a social pressure and the implication it has, a country like ours, when you want electricity, is to give basic services. You go into some of these rural areas, they don't have electricity. You're talking about health. You're talking about education. It's providing the ability for someone to work after 6 p.m. because it's dark and being able to study. So it's not just a luxury. So when someone comes and says, I want a 25% return on dollar terms or euro terms, you translate this into the impact it has on your people, and then tell you your perspective is very different.
On that note, changing perspectives, thank you very much.